Steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, back with another video. Let's dive right in. 1965 Lincoln Continental sedan. You see that here on the screen. Stick with me to the end. I'll let you know what I think this car is going to sell for. I think some will discount it because of what they see in some of the photos, but there's always opportunity for these cars. Certainly, it just depends on kind of where you're at and how far you're willing to go with said project. But if we look at the brief write-up, of course, we're on bringatrailer.com. I think my screen share is cut off just slightly here at the top, but most of my reviews lately come from this particular site because it's just like the go-to place to sell cars now. This 65 sedan is said to be purchased new by the seller's aunt. It was acquired by the seller, let's call it, just under 20 years ago. Of course, it has the 430 work in 2022. They mentioned the carburetor, replacement of the fuel pump, brake master cylinder, and so on, kind of some other maintenance. This car is no reserve. It has a clean California title. It talks about the color, which we'll get into. The trunk lid or deck lid, as it's referred to, was replaced in 2023. They mentioned rust is present, which we will certainly look at that. 15-inch wheels, of course, in 65. And power steering was standard and a lot of, just the normal stuff. They do say that the steering's sloppy, which is typical in these cars. They're normally going to need a center link and potentially all the front steering. And there's some other things here that they say were replaced in 2023. They go on to show some of a little bit of dinginess, I guess you could kind of say, but by far not the worst interior. And if you've been following this channel, I kind of love the authenticity of this leather. I'd rather have the OG or original leather, so to speak. You can often clean this up and make it look super nice, depending on how much time and effort you want to put in here. The MEL 430 looking a little crusty. We'll talk a little bit more about it. The thing to point out here is we can tell right away it's a California car, which this will align with. The information that we'll see in a moment is when you have this extra tube here. You've heard me talk about this probably in the past, but this right here is a quick indicator that it was a California car. This is additional emissions, and I like to always point that out. Those are kind of getting harder to find. One of the good things that you're going to see is they have a good amount of photos underneath. They're being very upfront about this car. So nobody's going to get something that they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize what I got. We're going to break this information down here in a minute a little bit further. Now, although when we look at the detailed photos of this, I think you're going to, most people are going to look and go, wow, this car, it needs a lot. But I will say this, and you'll see this on my pluses. There's something to be said about whatever condition a car is in. When it's running and driving and you can get in it and you can move it and you can cruise it or whatever you want to do, there's a lot to be said for that. Now, certainly, maybe making this a super reliable car. Yeah, you're probably going to want to do some things, but we've known people to buy these cars and not do any maintenance on them and never have issues. Not saying you will, but this is a huge plus, and there's plenty of Lincolns that sell that don't run. So, okay, I tried to adjust the screen there some. So what I'd like to do is look at a few of these photos, and then we'll go over to my presentation. You can see this isn't something we see a lot from a California car, where the front bumper, I don't know what the word is for this and how they get to this condition, especially in a drier climate. But certainly, you'll see sometimes bumpers will do this. And again, I don't know if it's a certain situation that causes it. But certainly that bumper, unless you wanted to build, patina is a big word in the truck world, and really I think in the car world, but mostly in the truck game. A lot of people are building patina vehicles, kind of leaving the outside that original color, faded paint, things like that. The cool thing about these bumpers is certainly if you were looking for something a little bit ratty, so to speak, shout out to the ratties in California, our friends, and kind of more than California, but mostly out there, these bumpers match. So, if someone bought this car and they were looking to swap these bumpers up, you could buy, usually from the Bumper Boys or someone, you could buy re-chromed ones. They're not cheap. You could get these redone. I guess if they could get redone, I would assume that they could. But again, someone might be looking for something like this on a kind of a ratty build, I guess, you can say. We could see here the deck lid does look like a little bit different color because they did have it swapped out. This is a key thing. I've talked about this a good amount, that these deck lids are getting very hard to find. Now, there are people that are making the replacements that are fiberglass. Won't go into that right now, but certainly to have a sedan that does not need a deck lid, that's your light years ahead on that. We can see it has the original California black plates. Looks like, of course, they did get it. So it's 2024 sticker, and then you've got the Ventura Greg Brown license plate bracket. We can see here a little bit of rusty crusty going on here in this dog leg, as we refer to it as, and then this lower corner, as I've said in the past, that on these doors, they just tend to, right in this area, they'll kind of build some of that rust there. We can see it does have the 4 wheel covers, aka hubcaps. We've got a little bit of a bend here in this antenna, and then you've got some marking here going on in the middle of the door, the driver door. Now, what I'm going to try to do is not go through every single photo, because I know I tend to go through that a lot. Here you can see dents and dings. There are people that specialize in taking all of these dents and dings out. I think what you're going to find in this car is it needs a lot. Yeah, it really does. There are some people out there that might be looking for a lower cost Lincoln. They don't really care about some of these aesthetics. They want to kind of leave it ratty, so to speak. And, a little bit of dinginess, whether they will or, I had a car that, a 67 that had a lot of this going on because it had the vinyl roof on it. And, all of this can be fixed. Certainly if somebody was looking for a lower cost Lincoln, maybe to get in, cruise with the gang, the crew, if you will, and just enjoy, excuse me, and have something to cruise, this is a potential. Obviously, it's something that, in my opinion, over the course of time, you're going to need to put some money in. We can see it has the factory heel pad. You've heard me maybe talk about some of the cars that don't have this. And this is, you can see the factory throttle here, and the lower corner doesn't look too bad. That'll support, typically not a ton of wear and tear, but you can see even without maybe a lot of miles, there's certainly a lot of dinginess that can happen to one of these, beautiful cars. If we look at the dash, we can see it has the original dash plate here. This was given to the person that bought it. Since it's pretty much like a one family owned car, these will typically follow with that car. But these are cool because you can kind of get these redone if you want to put your name on it and whatnot. It looks like, from what we can see there, under 70,000 miles. It's not missing the little cover here, which goes over the fuse panel. For those that don't know, that is where the fuse panel is in 6465. We want to look in here in the doors again. This is kind of rough. Up here, certainly we saw this a moment ago. The lights are working on the interior, and we can see the back seats, probably from sitting outside a very long time. Those top of those back seats are just thrashed. So, if you're going to get the backs done, you're going to end up probably getting the fronts done, unless you could find someone that has some factory interior to kind of swap out. As rough as this car looks, I mean, you look at some of these items like the seats and whatnot, and it's just crazy that, the way things were made, a lot of it can withstand many years of neglect. If we take a look here kind of at the door panels, I think that they've done a good job of kind of really showing everything that's going on with this car. Now, typically in the convertibles, you'll see surface rust in here sometimes, and just a little bit of stuff that can be cleaned up. I don't think this can easily be cleaned up. I mean, you could probably make it a lot better with the quadruple zero steel wool and some of the Brasso type polish. You could probably clean this up a lot, but that's just one thing to think about. You can see all of this other stuff looks really good here, the stainless. But this one here, I know even in the convertibles will tend to build up a little bit like that, and that's what you're seeing there. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone that is going to want to leave this car maybe as is. But again, there are some examples. I think some use cases where someone would want to cruise something and then down the road put some money in it. The deck lid, someone has taken the time to kind of paint, probably the people that had this before them that sold it, and kind of paint all these areas again. They can be prone to rust. That one looks solid. We see here in the trunk, it has pretty much everything that you want. Again, it is a little dingy. They actually take the time to pull the spare tire. That is where the spare tire sat, right in this area here in 64 and 65. What we can see here is they've added in an extra fuel filter, okay? It probably took a little while to get this car running and driving, so they wanted to make sure if they clean the fuel tank out that they're catching any sediment here, certainly. And this is a 2-port, not a 3-port that we, would rather have. We could tell because it has the 2 screws in top. But this is your factory fuel filter, and this is the aftermarket one that you'll often see people will add. We can see it does have this battery box or tray. This is pretty rare. I mean, they are out there, but a lot of these original cars will have them. A lot of the other cars, they've rotted away or someone's discarded it and they're just like, whatever. But it is kind of cool to see that. It does have the single master cylinder rather. And they did note that was changed at some point. We can also see that it is an AC car. Highly doubt the AC is working. You can see the carb looks like it's cleaned up here. So they did have that rebuilt. And then they have a good amount of underneath photos. I thought this was ironic. I looked at this last night. Oxnard, for anyone that lives in California and maybe a Back to the Future fan, they call the Back to the Future car from Back to the Future 3. That was the train when Doc, or the train collides with it. And then Doc comes in. They refer to that DeLorean that was wrecked and totaled with the train collision, the Oxnard, because I think it was filmed in Oxnard, California. The 2 guys up in Massachusetts, the father-son, they own the bits and pieces of that car, which is kind of cool. Anyways, you can see, again, the dinginess of the front bumper. We can also see right in here. This is an area that I often tell you guys you want to look at. My friend Teresa over the years has really reinforced this, as others have. But this kind of front cross member here, if you will, up underneath where the radiator's at and the battery box sits over here, this can get real crunchy in here, and that's what we're kind of seeing. This is probably the worst area underneath the floor pans. These can be changed. There is a company that makes a replacement, or you could probably find a local fabricator to fab some up. But that is, you see right in this area, a lot of times water and boots and shoes and things like that would just kind of hold water, and it gets under that carpet, under that jute, and it just, over the course of time, it just rots there a little bit. The good thing is, if you look at everything else, for the most part, it looks very solid. The 2 big challenges here, this is the passenger floor pan. The driver floor pan is worse. They have some close-ups here. This is kind of a structural support piece underneath. And then this is the actual floor pan right here. And you can see above the exhaust as well. Very, very crunchy. And if we look under that front cross member right here. Now, this stuff can usually be repaired, but I'm telling you, if it's got this amount here, I think it would be fine. But you certainly, again, you're probably already making a decision whether you would even jump in on this car over the course of time. It's just going to need a lot. But what I wanted to reinforce to you is that it's not totally gone. There is opportunity for this car. We're going to look at some of my pros and cons here in just a moment. This is, I think, a 65 only piece. I think the 64 one is different. So that's something that I'll talk about down the road. But this little interior piece, those are usually pretty nasty. But that's a 1 year only, if I remember correctly. They'll sometimes be found under the front seat. And this is like as it's going down the assembly line, what they're doing to the car. These are very rare. They're usually in about this condition. There's a ton of paperwork you can see there from 1974 to 1987, kind of showing some of the repairs. There's more literature, some of the old receipts, and then you can kind of see these are the vent windows, and comes with a car cover. Okay, and then we're back to the beginning. So let's take a look at what I've got, and then we'll wrap this up. Definitely appreciate everyone that sticks with me to the end. It's a 65 Lincoln Continental. This is a sedan, of course. We can see right here there was 36,824 built. They were about $500 more than the convertibles, and there were 3,356 convertibles built. Now, I will tell you this is important to look at. We saw that price right now. It's in the few $1,000 range. I'll tell you what I think it's going to go for. But a fair Lincoln 65 sedan is at 15 almost now. So you have to look at it and go, wow, if I could get this car for 5 or 7 or 8 grand, how much am I going to put into it? Are you going to be able to enjoy it right out of the gate? And only you will know that. The serial number is listed here. This was submitted to the registry. I'll show you just in a moment. I think one of my main key things here is it is a complete car. The registry, I did check it. It was submitted on June 16, 2019, almost 5 years ago. And it was an LCOC status as of 1998. So certainly if maybe that family member was driving it and enjoying it, and maybe from 98 to, now, call it 25 years, 26 years-ish, certainly sitting outside, maybe under a tree or something like that, it could maybe bring it to that current condition. We know if we just break down the VIN, which I have up here, this is copy and pasted from the listing. It's a 5, so it's 65. It's an 82, which is the four-door sedan. The last 6 characters, I know I often just say last 6 characters, but it is technically the consecutive unit number, which in this case is 405361. So the 4 is always standard. You skip that. This one is with a 0, meaning it's an earlier production car. So it's the 5,361st out of the combined convertibles and sedans. They were not separated in this consecutive unit number. So 5,361. We know a total of 40,180 were built for 65. I didn't include the limos in there, but there's 50 limos in addition to that. So it's the 5,000-ish out of 40,000 for that year. We can see here the color G is light ivy gold. Bring a Trailer has it as gold, but that's standard. They're typically just going to kind of sum it up. Big deal, light ivy gold, but that's what the book says. Trim is 78, which is gold. That's what we see. The date is 25J, which we'll see on the next page. And I know I always say DSO, but it's technically in the book is listed as district codes or domestic special order. So I think I always say district sales unit or something like that, but you get where I'm going. Now, this is a testament. This is a 52, which I always talk about the importance of an LA. You think warm climate and things like that. We certainly saw with this car, even with the warm climate, these cars can be maybe not the best of care taken of them. And again, not pointing fingers at anyone, life gets in the way sometimes. So if this car had to sit outside or sit under an oak tree where, it's getting all kinds of stuff piling up on it, oak leaves and things like that, turn into mush, and then water getting trapped, or someone just leaving a car cover on, maybe where it rains, all of that can contribute to the deterioration, if you will. 25J, so we got basically, if we look at this, the letter J represents September, which Bring a Trailer broke this down as well. So J is September. And again, as someone had pointed out, I appreciate that in the past. If you look in the book, there is no I, and they skip that because they don't want to confuse it with the number 1. So J is September. Number 25 is the day of the month. So that would have been September 25th of 1964. Now, I know what you're saying. What do you mean it's a 1965 model? The production ran from August 3rd of 64, so they got to start early all the way through mid-July or July 9th of 65. So that production, mid-year to mid-year. And again, this one was the 5,361 out of the total. And that's key because if you think about September 25th, they were only like 6 weeks in, give or take 6-7 weeks into the production. That's why it's such a low model number there. The pros of this listing, I would say it's definitely a survivor car. The DSO 52 is a key thing, but obviously we know this car is going to need everything. Runs and drives. There's tons of paperwork to back up including the original build sheet. The car is complete for the most part. It's an AC car. It's a unique color combo, which you don't see a lot of. It is a black plate license, black California plate, which I believe that you can get registered if you're in California. There's some rules around that. And the original nameplate or I meant to say the original license plate brackets, rather. Those are kind of getting hard to find, although the front one is broken. This car is going to need a lot, close to everything. Now, I agree that some stuff was done, and that's a good thing, because if you were looking to buy this car, literally bring a trailer, and you were going to trailer at home, you could drive it on the trailer. There's rust throughout, including the floor pans. Again, it's nothing that can't be fixed, but you just have to make a determination how much are you willing to spend on that. The chrome and trim will need to be redone if you're not looking to leave it as is. You need to plan on all new weather stripping. Okay, I only recommend steel rubber, the best in the business. But even if you look at the trunk area, the weather stripping's all gone there. And, again, you're going to need that all throughout. A front cross member under the radiator area, as I pointed out, is kind of crusty, and the interior is going to need to be redone. So, in closing, I know I tried to make this a little bit more efficient, but it ended up still being a 20-minute call. Or video rather. I would say this car is going to sell between $7,000 and $12,500. This could be a good candidate for someone looking to do a resto mod, dare I say an engine swap. This could also be good for someone, believe it or not, that whole style of, taking something that's kind of original, not looking to like really refreshen everything, maybe air suspension, maybe static drop, maybe leave as is and just cruise it. Someone could easily get in with a decent price car. And potentially well under where the values are at right now, but we'll have to see where this one goes. Now, if it goes for a good amount, it's going to help set the lower end standard. So if this car goes for 15 or 18 or 20, which I kind of, my gut's telling me it's not, then in that case, it's going to help set that standard and bump that lower end even up higher. So we'll have to see what the demand is. Right now, it's at $2,165. Stay on the rise, everyone, and thank you for the support. We're out of here.